Good afternoon and welcome to the Teaching Academics Through Music webinar. It's presented by William Yo. And I'm excited to have everybody on board today for what will hope to be a very interesting lesson on how academics and music are married together in a wonderful way to help student learning. So let us begin. Okay. As I said, our topic is teaching academics through music, and I'm William Yo. I teach music here at Robert Louis Stevenson Elementary School of the Arts, and have teaching profession for 31 years. And I think my passion in music is the opportunity to go and make connections that music has with all the different academics. Today's schedule is going to be a general overview of music's connections to core curriculum and specials, using the standards to build a relationship between academics and music, and in particular, linking mathematics to music, connecting science and music, and developing language arts through music. And I do have a few sample lesson plans that will explain a little bit of detail that could be used by teachers who might not be familiar with the music genre and how it ties into academics. And then we'll have questions at the end, and I'll forward information for you to contact me if you. Music connections are far in depth with the following subjects: science, mathematics, language arts, social studies, foreign language, visual arts, dance, physical education, and media. Every one of those disciplines, there's a wonderful plethora of things you can use to go and incorporate music to enhance student learning. What I provide here for you is, as a general classroom teacher, there are standards that I, as a music teacher, use that can be used for each grade level. We have a technical difficulty. Just for 1 second. Hang on 1 second. Right, thank you and welcome back. As I was saying, we have a number of standards in music that definitely have a connection to the general disciplines in the classroom for the core curriculum. I listed them by grade level For example, the first one is MUKH31, and the students are asked to go and perform simple songs, finger plays, and rhymes to experience connections among music, language, and numbers. As a music teacher, we find a variety of different songs that can incorporate numbers, rhyming schemes, and that translates over into the general classroom for kindergarten, showing a direct a connection to music and academics. That's extended a little bit further in MU1H31, explore the use of instruments and vocal sounds to replace or enhance specified words or phrases in children's songs, choral readings of poems and stories and or chants. Continues on with second grade, and that would be performing compare patterns orally and visually found in songs, finger plays, or rhymes for exploring patterns in other contexts. As third grade, we have experience and discuss using correct music vocabulary and other relevant content and similarities in the use of pattern in teacher selected context. As you look at that subjects, as we'll go into more detail as we go through the MU4H31, identify connections among music and other contexts using correct music and other relevant content area, and explore how learning in one academic area can help with knowledge or skill acquisition in a different academic area. See, all these different standards are building upon what was learned previously in the earlier grade level. For fifth grade, we have one that's going to be examine critical thinking processes in music and describe how they can be transferred. And I wrote a number of them down to 8. There were a few that really fit into this category of music and some periods on music composition and performance. The next one is identify connections among music and other content areas and or contexts through interdisciplinary collaboration. And finally, discuss how the absence of music would affect other content areas and contexts. So as we look at the standards, they all build upon each other from each grade level. And as we do at Stevenson here, we have posters up on our wall that kind of tie into the Bloom's digital taxonomy, where we have stage 1 is remembering, stage 2 understanding, 3 applying, 4 analyzing, 5 evaluating, and 6 creating. Our goals at Stevenson are to try to get the students at a very high level of 5 and 6. The recognizing and highlighting of at level 1 is very basic. We try to get our students, as I said, to level 5 and 6, where they're actually doing critiques on what they do as performers, what other students are doing, what another ensemble might be performing, and what they can go and add to improving a performance. The standards, as you can see, kind of line up from K all the way to 6, going from a very basic recall of level 1, remembering, to an actual creation and evaluating process. Now we'll get into the meat of what this webinar is all about, with how music can be incorporated into a general academic setting. First one I'd like to go into music is the science of sound, and it can be broken into also acoustics. All the fundamentals of music are based on the 4 sound wave, and that is a look of our wave right there. 1 second.
So you see a picture right there. Go ahead. All the fundamentals of music are based on scientific principles of the basic sound wave. And there's wasn't discussed in class. We call it as musicians pitch, and that deals with the highness and lowness of sound, which we'll go into more detail in a little bit. There's also intensity or volume of the sound. That is what the scientists will discuss with students. But for me, as a musician, dynamics is what we call it. That's the loudness and softness of sound. The third one is duration. That's how long the sound is going to be heard for. Well, we break our sounds up into different kinds of chunks. And the last one, sometimes the most difficult for some students to understand, is timbre, which we call as musicians tone quality, right? Sometimes as a musician, changeable. Now I'm going to break down each one in more detail, understand what each property is. First, frequency. For a musician, we look at pitch and it refers to the lowness and highness of a given sound. This property of music requires the ability to understand the music notation that pertains to the vertical aspects related to pitch. When I think of pitch, I think of vertical, going up and down on a line, okay? And what this would incorporate would be students learning the ideas of notation, such as the staff, the 5 lines as you can see here. You have the actual staff, you have a treble clef. This one happens to have a bass clef, and musicians read. And then you have the different notes. Each line has that are associated to it. For treble clef, it would be E, G, B, D, F, and the 4 spaces are F, A, C, E. That would be basic notation at a beginning level to teach students how to read music. And I assign different kinds of sayings to them, such as every good boy does fine. That helps students memorize the names of the notes, the pitches. We've brought that here in Stevenson some more to, like, elephants got big dirty feet. Every good boy deserves fudge. Those are some of the, that's an old one from the good old days. Elvis's guitar broke down Friday. Empty garbage before dad freaks. A lot of the students in my last 31 years have come up with some really great sayings to help them memorize and know what the storylines are, what the lines are for the treble clef, right? The 4 lines of 4 spaces for the treble clef would be F-A-C-E, which spells the word face. With pitch, that also ties in with helping students understand what soprano, alto, tenor, and bass voicing is. And the common rule of science principles are: bigger the instrument, the lower the pitch, and smaller the instrument, the higher the pitch. Students can understand that in basic sound wave. Second component is dynamics, intensity, and volume. As I said, we call it dynamics in music, but it does transfer to science along with the word intensity and volume. And when I explain this to students, I try to radio to up or down, loud, the softness and loudness of sounds in music, and the terminology linked to Italian using the following. So when you see music notation written, we try not to go and have students go and say, oh, it's soft, oh, it's loud. It's listed as follows. Which is abbreviated as PP, represents extremely soft when students perform. The next one up, middle, mezzo, moderately soft. Mezzo forte is MF, moderately loud, and forte is F, and fortissimo is extremely loud. And I have these over here on the side, which shows you different degrees to go from a soft volume to a fortissimo, and that would be the device known as crescendo. Okay, and we get the word increase from that. Crescendo to get louder. Decrescendo is to get softer. And diminuendo is to dim. Okay. Graphic below goes into a little bit of detail, which is more scientific, where it shows the low volume of less air pressure, and for a high volume, there's more air pressure. Okay, changing the wavelength. The third component is rhythm and duration. Rhythm is a specific length to a given sound or sounds. This aspect of music requires the ability to understand the music notation that pertains to the horizontal aspects. To talk about rhythms, we go and have them think of time on a horizontal basis, not going up and down like pitch does. So notation, which we'll talk about next, is going to be going on a line, and we have notation terms such as whole note, and every note that F rest that you have a rest that equals it for the same or at the fourth component is second of the silent timbre, but our quality is produced. Introduces the families of musical instruments. So when we talk about timbre and tone quality, this is where instruments come into play and what voice you might be for singing. And we have the different families, which is the family of strings, which incorporate instruments such as guitar and banjo. That's just a few of the string instruments I could have listed. But there's many more. The woodwind family would be incorporating the flute, the piccolo, oboe, clarinet, saxophone, bassoon, English horn. And then the brass family would incorporate the trumpet, cornet, French horn, trombone, and tuba. Percussion family has a whole list of instruments. That's snare drum, bass drum, triangle, and maracas. Would involve the piano, xylophone, marimba, and organ. So the tone quality of a string instrument, a timbre, is going to be unique because it's going to be plucked. The timbre to be produced by blowing into a wooden instrument or having a wooden reed vibrate against a mouthpiece. Brass instruments would be involving blowing into a mouthpiece and using wind to get your lips to vibrate and get a sound. And percussion can be striking an instrument, shaking maracas to produce a sound. I've provided a picture here of different instruments that are listed. You can see the ones that can be discussed in class. You may look at, might have performed as you were a child when you were in elementary school. We're moving on to mathematics. You'll see there's a very strong connection to mathematics and science through music. When addressing mathematics with music, we focus on the sound waves property of duration. Again, how long it is. That goes back to the horizontal aspect of music. The use of mathematics in music deals with the horizontal aspect of music and rhythmic notation. It considers the use of fractional proportions that include the whole, the halves, quarters, eighths, and sixths. The rhythmic notation relates to real-life experiences. Its example is money, liquid conversions, and recipes. Today I used an example in my class where we were playing this game called Playing Fraction Pies by David Tolga's website, and the students were working with a pie chart where they had the whole pie equal a whole note, which we'll get into in a little bit more detail later on. And the whole thing helped them understand the relationships of fractions, such as a pie, and how they relate to musical notation. I went one step further by taking out a dollar bill and showing them that the whole dollar would equal the whole note, the entire whole note, and then by breaking it down to 50-cent pieces and also quarters, that shows the fractional and the part relationship as it relates to music. I provided a chart here for you on rhythmic notation, and it starts at the very top level of a whole note. In addition, look at this note to say we're going to play that note and hold it for 4 beats of our foot. That is a rest, a whole rest that equals it. And a measure of 4/4, 1 into 2 half notes, where I would go and actually play a note or sing it as a top. That represents the rest, the half rest, and that would be held for 2 beats. You can see there's a string of a pyramid forming in which I could have 2 half notes to equal 1 whole note. So if I sing a whole note, it would be simply like this, ta. If I have 2 half notes to equal that whole note, we have a ta, ta. I can further break that whole note down into 4 quarters. Hopefully by watching this, you're able to see the relationship of breaking this whole dollar into 2 half dollars and now down to 2 quarter notes. So a quarter note would get 1 beat. That is the rest. That would be silence when you play. Gets 1 beat, and I would have 4 quarter notes to equal a whole note, 2 to equal a half note. And this would sound, this would be a ta, 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 ta. If I'm doing an 8th note, it looks like this with this is a blackened note, and then I have a stem, and I have a flag. The 8th rest looks like this, and it gets a half a beat, half a 1, and I would have 8 eighth notes to equal an entire whole note. And this would sound T, 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 T. And the last one for our purposes would be the 16th note. It has its note head. This has a stage. And it will go and have a 16th rest equivalent that looks like this. It equals a quarter of a beat. So that's our chart. And as you look over this, you can see how it ties into measurements for volume, most definitely to a point for the first 3 levels with money. And when the students make those connections, it really empowers them to a lot more for mind. Rhythms in action. I broke this down some more to see some more equivalents for you. Notes. These 2 equal 4. So here's 4 beats. Another rhythm, I have a half note here that gets 2 beats, and I have 2 quarters for 1 count each. They would all equal 4 to equal a whole note. And I have 4 8th notes. They each get a half beat from our chart behind. From the one previous. In the webinar, plays on this and really exploits the whole idea of these charts of pies, and it really helps students to lock in how this ties into this over here. We're going to move on to the third aspect of to the language arts and music. The construction of music is linked to the foundations of language arts. Melody. and FCAT model from years ago where they had to go and write a 5-paragraph essay, or FSA has a writing component. I tried to explain to my students that the way you write an essay is very similar to the way that you go and write a symphony. When you go and write Beethoven, the symphony, you have an introduction that would go, and for the people have the theme that's going to be addressed. The manager is going to go and want you to hear. The next section of that symphony is going, or movement is going to, the person developed that symphony, that theme, with a whole bunch of different devices, such as changing rhythm, changing the tonality of what they were trying to go and express in that theme. That, as a writer, we would go and call the development section. And there's this one audience hear that melody one more time. The mood, and then we go and say what we're going to talk about. What is our paper going to be about? The theme. Take 3 paragraphs to give evidence to support that theme, and we end it with a recap where we go and say, okay, we talked about XXX. Here's why I believe, why I disbelieved, and stated. So the symphonic form, as compared to an essay, would be your introduction, thesis for a writer, and then for a musician, or you have the development, and then the last for a conclusion or a summary. But as a musician, we call it a recapitulation. We recap it. Language arts very heavily involved when it comes to lyrics. When you have students sing any kind of song, poetry, and writing lyrics to a song. So, stand very, very language and music. Music uses terminology derived linked to ancient Latin, forming the Romantic languages of Italian, Spanish, and French. Italian vocabulary and destruct should be performed. For instance, we used such as fast, largo, which means slow, moderato, meaning moderate. And then we also have Italian terminology that ties into style and articulation, how the music. We have march, as in marcia, calmly, or maestoso, majestically. You'll find that one thing I like to do when I go and teach is I try and find derivatives from those Italian words that I just mentioned. Experience talking about tier 3 words. Have there's so many derivatives that will build student vocabulary, and the terminology I'm mentioning here is on to learn. Like I said before, if you have a student translates your talk of what a musician does. That can be transferred over to the academics also. Education. For example, on the word, the root word time, temporary meaning just a little bit. It's not going to be all the time. It's going to be just for a tiny bit, not all the time. Diminuendo. The word is kind of in diminution. They go and decrease, or to get, if I go and dim the lights, I'm making them get softer. Accelerando. Answers kind of in the word right there, to mean accelerating, to acceleration, to get faster. Simile means simile or simulation. Okay? That's words to mean presto means fast. When I refer back to doing things in a real world experience, here's a perfect one that my students love to go and discuss. Presto sucks because outside Publix, you have an ATM machine and it happens to have the word presto on top. And that opens up a nice discussion for the students to realize, oh, if I put the card in the machine, I'm going to get my money fast. So presto means fast. Vivace means fast, and vivacious, you can see the root words right there in the word vivacious. So the words that we use in music have a strong, powerful relationship to a lot of different words. Lesson plans here that can be that can help you as a teacher that might not be familiar with music or not be able to use it much in your classroom to use to build your students' talents in science, math, and language arts. One is for science here, called "My Mama Told Me to Tell You to Do My Name Just the Way I Do," and I'll describe this the best I can with some assistance with what I have written, and also with just doing some vocals here for you. You're going to place students in an open circle, and just sit them in chairs, open circle, and you're going to have the class memorize this statement I just had up on the board, on top here, okay? My mama told me to tell you to do my name just the way I do. And they say it over a couple times to memorize it and say it with great fluidity. And then if they would like to, we have a hand clap, a clap pad. So you clap their hands, so they pat their lap first and then clap their hands, or clap their hands first and pat their lips to get that kind of sound effect and rhythm. And then they can also, at an older level, they can go and actually pat their neighbor's hand, the right hand, and tap their neighbor's hand on the right side, so the person to their left will tap their hand. And we all get a beat going with that kind of feel. Each student's going to have an opportunity then to go and say their name and manipulate in terms of pitch, rhythm, dynamics, and or timbre. We're going back to what we talked about with the 4 different principles of sound. So as the group is doing this, my mama told me to tell you to do my name just the way I first name, nickname, whatever they want to use, in a way that's going to manipulate the 4 different properties of sound. So I give an example of my name being Mr. Yo. I might go and do this, where I change my name. Let's just say with pitch, I might go and say, Mr. Yo. And the group has to say that back exactly the way I did it 2 times. So it'd be like this. So I might go and do, my mama told me to tell you to do my name just the way I do. Mr. Yo. And they repeat back, Mr. Yo, Mr. Yo. And then we move on to the next student. If they wanted to go and change my name with rhythm, I might go and do, every name's a rhythm. So I say you had to manipulate something but their name is already going to be a rhythm because of syllables in their name. But I juiced it up some more by giving my nickname as a child. I had a problem where I would always go and fall up the steps and down the steps. My dad called me Willie Lump Lump. So we do my rhythm with Willie Willie Lump Lump, and they gotta say Willie Willie Lump Lump, Willie Willie Lump Lump twice. So I just manipulate my rhythm of my name even more so. Another way could be to change the timbre of my voice. I might go and do Yoda. So I change my normal, and I could also change the dynamics. I could say Mr. Yo. Problem is, when you get really loud and everybody repeats it, it gets to be a deafening sound inside the classroom. So that is an example of one very simple lesson that can go and have students experiment with their name and changing and manipulating the different kinds of different kinds of four qualities of the sound, dynamics, or timbre. And every student gets an opportunity, and it's also going to be their opportunity to improvise what they've just done and make it up as they go, possibly. So that's a sample that can be tied in for science. What happens for me is when I do it's standard then to go and teach the students the different families of instruments, and then I take them to the top level of blooms where I have them actually produce and build their own instruments. We had one year where the students were asked to go and build their own instrument, write up a synopsis about what processes they went through to go and build it, and they had to prove to me, could their instrument produce all properties of sound? So for some of them, it was pretty easy. If they were going to make an instrument that could be blown into and they drilled holes into it, but some were more difficult because they could only produce one kind of thing, or two things: the timbre, being a wood instrument, maybe a string instrument, and rhythm. Some had more of a challenge to go and try and get change of pitch or a change in dynamics. But that was their charge, to build an instrument that could go and produce all four different kinds of properties of a sound wave. So this would be the basic thing for the initial icebreaker for students, and then to go to the level of creating, that could be the building of the instruments for a group. It's a great springboard for also if students are going to look at science fair and really delve into those chapters at each grade level that work with. We had another one we did one year where we had students go and build a very basic tambourine type thing, where they took different kinds of paper plates, different kinds of thickness, plastic, some were paper, and we placed different kinds of materials inside it. Some put in different kinds of rice, some put different beans inside, and by sewing the two together, and then we also involved art where we went and drew stuff on, and we had each group level go and learn a different rhythm. So they had designed own rhythm, and we built a whole rainforest down in the auditorium to have a symphony of sound that each group had a different rhythm, and it sounded differently with a different kind of pitch because of materials. A whole mathematics lesson. Encourage you as students to called David Tolga, Phil Tolga.com. And this guy has a whole plethora of different activities of integrating music into the academics. And one that the students really like goes back to the pie charts I showed you earlier. It's called Playing Fraction Pies. And it illustrates the rhythmic pyramid via whiteboard or website, which I showed on the website here on the PowerPoint earlier. And it draws connections to rhythmic note values so that dividing a whole pie into halves, quarters, eighths, and sixteenths. What they do then is it shows you that, but then it takes the student into letting them compose two measures of a rhythm composed. And it's so nice that you can actually go and email what they wrote and what they composed to the teacher. And they hit play it, they can erase it, delete it, and then they can go and write a whole new rhythm. It's a fun opportunity for students to go and really correlate fractions into music. There's some other things that they also go and incorporate on his website. He has one where he has called playing fraction bars, where he has different tubes that are illustrated on the website, and they're different colors. They kind of line up with boom whackers that you can get that are different plastic tubes. They're different sizes, and they're tuned to a specific pitch. And you can produce songs and perform them on for a concert or just to go and teach different kinds of scientific properties of low and high. He also his website, which would incorporate the thunderstorm watch. You want to teach students about science, about lightning and thunder, lightning coming first and thunder coming last. A website activity where you hear the lightning, you watch the lightning go, and then you count 1,000, 1,000. So deep beginning a ticker going for say 30 counts, 30 ticks, and every 5 equals 1 mile away, you would find out that, oh, it was 6 miles for that storm. But based on the time you saw the lightning, when things that he has on his website that involve science, mathematics, it's a great tool that I think your bring a relationship to understanding music more and how it ties into both science and math. There were some other ones in that one that's really good. Size water bottles again to change the pitch, and there's also one on Peter and the Wolf, Sergei Prokofiev, where it goes into detail about the melodies that are produced in that work and which instruments play them. Strings representing Peter, the French horn representing the wolf, and it goes into a nice game with that too, which even ties in literature. So to go and look into that website, it's davidtalga.com or philtalga, and you'll be in for a lot of fun, exciting activities to go and help out your students. A sample language arts lesson would be, this is a fun one I like to use for the students, and it can be involved at grade either 1, 2, 3, and 4. They all enjoy it. It's where I take students and pair them up in twos, and I give them an index card. And on each index card, there's going to be a word or two, and it's going to be an idea. It might be, as I listed, sample text would be a whisper, or a crying baby, a marching band, 40 trumpets, a lawnmower, a gentle breeze. And on the back of the card, what will be listed will be the word forte or piano. Forte meaning loud and piano meaning soft. And each student's going to be able to go and show the card to their partner. The partner reads that text out loud, which helps in their reading skills. And then they have to guess, is that represent forte or is it going to represent piano? A little bit more creative, in which I might go and say a gentle breeze. That's a little bit, it's nice to students. It's not going to be forte, that's going to be piano. The students get caught up a little bit is when they go and see a polka dot tie attached to outfit's going to look very loud, okay? And some of them get that, but it raises a bar of understanding that would be forte loud, if you would go and see that kind of an outfit. So what the students do is they have these cards, they go and answer the question after they read it, and then they go and shop with somebody else in the classroom. 10, 15, maybe 20 times, depending on how many students are in the class. And the card holder shows the text to the partner, and the partner needs to guess whether the topic is loud or soft, or I would like to have students use the word forte or piano to have them really understand what the Italian language is. Students switch cards and pair up with another, and the reading fluency and music. It comes of wanting to address with three main subjects. I have a passion for tying in the music and the academics and see how it fits, because as a student, as a child, I wasn't really into academics in elementary school. I was the only child, and it was about trying to meet friends. And I wasn't really the sports enthusiast. I wasn't very good at sports. So last guy to go and get the football jersey, the football helmet, and I found my passion in trombone, playing trombone. And that's all I really wanted to do in my fourth, fifth, and sixth grade years. And I paid a price when I walked into seventh grade, because I wanted to take German, and they wouldn't let me take German because they said your child can't read with the testing that we did, whatever was equivalent to FCAT back in the old days. And I found that I needed to go and pretty much get my act together and start taking academics seriously, along with being involved with my musical endeavors, because I knew I wanted to be a musician at that age level of fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. And what ended up happening was I started to find a way to make connections to how my discipline that I love doing in music ties into math and science, language arts, and even social studies, and all the other disciplines I mentioned earlier. And that helped me to really become a more well-rounded student, and became successful from seventh grade to 12th grade on. And I tried to adopt that philosophy here at Stevenson, and I really believe that it's helped us a great deal in having great scores. We're always at the top when it comes to state scores for FCAT and FSA. I really do believe that the connections that I tried to go and bring into the academics helps to support students' total learning. And when they can view education and what they're learning from all different kinds of angles, it makes for a better student, and it makes for a better citizen in our country. So at this time, I have any questions that you might have. Great question. I have one here. For how many minutes do you get for each class? We get 45 minutes a day. What's nice at Stevenson here is we have every student gets music. Every student also gets art. They also are afforded the luxury to have a drama class, a dance class every week, and they're all 45 minutes long. The added perk here at Stevenson, along with all those electives that we have, I incorporate visual arts class, and we also have media. But on top of that, we have 2 days where we get to choose a specific discipline they want to go and work with. For instance, some might want to go and do drama. Another group, part of that class, might want to go and do a visual arts discipline that's going to be selected at the beginning of the year that will go throughout the entire year. Some might want to go and take orchestra. That's one day, which is our Mondays. On a Tuesday, we have another selection where they might want to go and take a more advanced drama class, a different component for visual art. And for myself, then we have concert band setting, where they start concert band. And this begins already in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So when the students get started here at Stevenson, they will continue on and be pretty well developed by the time they walk into 7th grade. But it's 45 minutes. We have one day where we have a reduced schedule, and it's just 35. But generally, Okay. Another great question. How do you collaborate with teachers at your school? Loaded question because I can go on for an hour. I make it a point to go to my teachers and say, how can I go and incorporate my discipline with you? And an example happened again today where we were doing this David Talga, the fraction pi thing, and the two teachers that dropped their students off came to me and they said, we were just talking about fractions this morning. I encourage anybody that's involved with music to have that conversation with your teachers and say, I'm doing this for this semester. Is there any way I can incorporate music? But I found as a music teacher, I go out and seek what I can do to help them out. In the past, we've written actual plays that deal with the academics. We wrote one time where it was all based on science. We took all the science standards and what we wanted to get the students to understand, and we had a whole play where we had dance, and they were put to certain songs, like for the rotation and revolution of the Earth. We use songs such as the Beatles, You Say You Want a Revolution, or for rotation, you Be Round Round from the 1980s song. We talked about the different kinds of transformations of rocks. So we had a whole bit where we did sedimentary rock represented by Mr. Sandman. Changes for metamorphic rock or hot stuff for igneous rock. And the students saw real gain in learning because they can make the connections between a song and the formation. So a play can be developed by a team to go and get students to understand whatever concepts, whatever standards you're trying to shoot for better understanding. I don't see any other questions. If any assistance, I contact me. I would be more than happy to come out and help at your school to go and take you through a live version of the things I explained here in this webinar. It's my passion. I love to go and make connections all the time between music and the academics to help support the learning of children, and also to build professional development for teachers and administrators. So I thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you.